All right, another episode of Stand Tall. It is December 23rd, and we are in chapter 5 of The Art of War, verse 19. Thus, one who is skillful at keeping the enemy on the move maintains deceitful appearances, according to which the enemy will act. He sacrifices something that the enemy may snatch at it. Number 20. By holding out bait, he keeps him on the march. Then, with a body of picked men, he lies and wait for him. All right, let's go over to an alternate translation to get a little bit more perspective. Master Sun says, therefore, those who skillfully move opponents make formations that opponents are sure to follow, give what opponents are sure to take. They move opponents with the prospect of gain, waiting for them in ambush. Cao says that formations that opponents are sure to follow are formations that give the impression of exhaustion. Opponents are moved by the prospect of an advantage. Okay, so be careful when you see an advantage because it may be a trap. Dumu says, it does not only mean giving the impression of exhaustion and weakness. When you are stronger than your opponent, then you appear worn out in order to induce the opponent to come to you. When you are weaker than your opponent, you will appear strong to impel the opponent to go away. Thus, the movements of opponents all follow your direction. When you move opponents with the prospect of advantage, since opponents are following you, you wait for them in ambush with well-prepared forces. Wang Chi says to this, whether you get opponents to follow you or get them to take something, be sure that you have crack troops ready for them first. Hey, dog. They're Great Pyrenees. Okay. I think I like Dumu's breakdown the best. Appear strong to impel the opponent to go away. You know, opponents are always going to follow your direction. The movements of opponents all follow your direction. They're going to kind of mirror you, you know, and mirroring is a strong technique. Okay, December 23rd out of the Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday and Stephen Hanselman. You are afraid of dying, but come now, how is this life of yours anything but death? Seneca, Moral Letters 77.18. Seneca tells an amazing story about an obscenely wealthy Roman who was carried around by slaves on a litter. On one occasion, after being lifted out of a bath, the Roman asked, am I sitting down yet? Seneca's point was essentially that what kind of sad, pathetic life is it you're so disconnected from the world that you don't even know whether you're on the ground? How did the man know whether he was even alive at all? Most of us are afraid of dying, but sometimes this fear begs the question, to protect what exactly? For a lot of people, the answer is hours of television, gossiping, gorging, wasting potential, reporting to a boring job, and on and on and on. Except in the strictest sense, is this actually a life? Is this worth gripping to so tightly and being afraid of losing? It doesn't sound like it. So parts of that I agree with, and parts of that I disagree with. But being afraid of losing, I think it can also be a metaphor for being afraid of change, because when things change, you lose it. And Stoics don't really necessarily fear change; they accept it because that's just the way that it is. And change is one of those things that it's like death. Um, and if you're afraid of change, you're afraid of dying. If you're afraid of how life currently is, then it's going to be more difficult because Stoicism is all about how the path and the difficulty before us is the path that's necessary to take. So I think that, you know, just like Sun Tzu was saying, be aware, right? Don't be so disconnected from what you're trying to accomplish, and that, like, are you the emperor who the general, right, who doesn't even know whether he's sitting down yet? You know, like, where are you at amongst the troops? Are you appearing strong when weak when strong? And what's being mirrored? Because an emperor like that, if that's going to be mirrored by your opponents or your people or your emotions, then it's it's giving the impression of weakness and exhaustion, and actually being weak and exhausted, just depending. So it's always necessary to stay grounded and not be disconnected.